Hello, Bl'Artagnan here, with one last team for Trey's Lost Chapter. I'm gonna be heading on vacation for a few days and wanted to get a team that I hoped would satisfy any TCC challenge conditions that come up in the next few days. For those who don't know, that usually means no burst, no synergy, and generally the top 2 to 6 most popular characters banned, based on what they have on DFFOO.com. So based on that, a team of Squall, Krile, and Kefka should satisfy those. This is, of course, assuming they post anything. It could end up just being an unofficial challenge run. Although calling it a challenge run maybe isn't super accurate, since Kefka does a great job in this stage. We already know about his HP silence antics, but he also is great here because his EX handles the instabreak, the EX debuff handles the sap, his speed down helps control the bosses a bit, and they're immune to 2 of his debuffs, meaning he can actually pair well with other teammates for once. The only downside to him really here is that his speed and low damage mean that he can kind of fall afoul of the turn count sometimes. Luckily that's where Squall and Krile come in, kind of making up for that. So, jumping back about 9 turns, I opened with Squall's LD there because I figured the fight's short enough that I'm not going to need all 3 LD uses to upkeep his overhead, so I might as well get that second stack early, so that when I finally do refresh it, I'll be up to 3 stacks instead of 2. I tend to do that with Squall in a lot of fights. I suppose if fights ever get longer, God forbid, then I'll probably start pacing that a bit more. This also, I think, continues the kind of unofficial Krile saga I've been doing. Didn't mean to, but she's just been so useful that I've been bringing her to basically every fight. The combination of Enchant, Imperil, Weakness, Damage Up, and Battery is really useful. Especially in this era of bursts where her EX buff is just like, oof, that's some primo stuff. So Squall's pretty simple to use. Really, I think the only tip I would say is if he has low Brave, use Renzakuken, and if he has high Brave, use Solid Barrel. And, use the EX whenever it's up and the LD when you need to refresh. Not much more to him than that. So you'll see there I didn't use Kefka's EX, just on the off chance that one of them's going to go yellow. His EX charges pretty fast, but I just kind of didn't want to deal with that. There we go. Big brain coming in there. A little bit lucky. I'm not actually sure what triggers the yellow turn stuff, but I just had a feeling that it was going to happen. Time for a pretty sad Krile EX due to the yellow aura using hit point damage. So, there's something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, with Kefka, a big part of his appeal is the HP silence, but the blind is actually pretty good too, and I often forget about it. So, halfway through this fight, I was thinking like, man, I've gotten so many lucky misses this fight. I hope people don't accuse me of cheating or something. And I was like, right, blind. Duh. So, that's a thing. So here, I don't think Kefka's EX is going to be charged in time for him to hit A on his turn. Luckily, he's fast enough that he should be able to charge it before A gets a turn. It does kind of neuter Squall splash damage a bit, but his single target is still pretty good since he got his LD board, so we'll be okay. Nice thing about Kefka for this fight is that he is super fast, which I know I said earlier is kind of a detriment since he doesn't have that much damage, but compared to, say, Arciela, Kefka has a very easy time kind of keeping up with him and making sure his debuffs stay on. Like, he doesn't have to kind of waste... how to put it? He doesn't have to worry about, like, oh, I want to use my EX, but if I use my EX, I won't be able to. They won't have Trine on them, and, he's able to just kind of keep pace with them and make sure that the debuffs you want to stay on, stay on. There we go, breaking him with the EX. So... deciding I want to kind of keep their health a bit similar and get maximum crit damage. So we go for B, or A, even though B wasn't broken there because I knew the splash would take it. Man, I think that just took like 5% of his health from 1 EX. Squall is ridiculous, and I'm loving it. A little bit aggressive with the Trines there, just to make sure. Since the enemies auto break when they're in red, even if the attack misses, the blind may not seem that important, but that helical dive thing, or helical whatever move they use, it delays by 2 turns, which is a huge pain, and the delay doesn't happen if the attack misses, even if the break happens, so it's just kind of another reason Kefka works really well here. I feel like Kefka's a character who's really slept on. I think that's probably because they tend to try to build fights so that he can't just insta-win the fight. Which is probably okay, because, he falls in that, that camp kind of similar to Eldnarch, where, well, Eldnarch is a different cat entirely. There's a lot of planning that goes in there. Kefka's kind of, when he works, he's like Warrior of Light, and the fight becomes kind of brainless. At least he's kind of funny looking, so that kind of keeps things interesting, right? So we're actually doing pretty okay turn count wise. We're past the halfway point. We haven't brought them below 50, but that's kind of okay since between the summon and the friend unit, a lot of our really big damage window is going to come later in the fight. When you're trying to kind of estimate how long you have in the fight, that you have to kind of account for that extra oomph you're going to be getting from those 2 things. And sometimes you'll have to be bringing your own burst weapon too. In this case, I won't be using mine, just as mentioned for the TCC challenge potential. Gonna feel silly if they end up not doing one, because then I'll have kind of... You'll see this ends up cutting it pretty close, and I was a bit nervous, so would have been nice to just be able to use the burst and kind of tie this out, but you do it for the glory, right? That's what we're doing this for, the glory. Oh, I'm pretty sure... Yeah, the paralysis actually knocked off Krile's Imperil. And I think I'm noticing that right now. That said, they have Trine on them, so I think I'd just rather get some damage. Oh. I guess the Imperil just fell off naturally. I'm great at counting. Question now, do I want to extend the Trine, refresh the Trine, or just let it fall off? And I decide to just let it fall off, because you see, he has another turn coming up. We're not worried there. The great thing about Squall's new follow-up is that you can use his EX on whichever guy you want to hit with more damage, and it'll still break both of them. I mean, again, you want to, if you're trying to break them in a specific order, you have to hit the one you want broken first with the EX. But if you're just concerned about dealing with more damage to one, but you also want to shave the other, it does that, which I appreciate. Really, I just love how kind of ridiculous his LD boards made him. Now we're bringing in Ramza here. Kind of the go-to friend these days. I think he's just the best. There's other friend units are good, but he just does so much. Launching, delaying, batterying. He even provides his galvanized buff when he comes in. What a guy, What a guy. And here is when it becomes apparent that I forgot to put on Jack's debuff before bringing Ramza. So I waste a turn in the summon to get that on, which is probably a bad idea, because that wastes part of the turn count. Had I waited until after the summon, that would have given me an extra free turn to use, which, again, this gets kind of close, so I kind of should have... Don't use calls in the summon. It's rarely a good idea. Now the orbs are gone, which is... It wasn't something we were worried about, but now that we're getting into the point where we're just trying to kill him dead, and preferably before Kefka comes back in, it's kind of comforting to know that we don't have to worry about some kind of doofiness there. My goodness. That's a 540,000 damage off that EX-fueled launch. They say Squall has no utility. His utility is murder. So there we go. I saw Squall was very high on damage, so I used Solid Barrel since it has the 2 HP dumps. I think in practice it's probably not that big a difference from using Ren'Sukuken because of the 100% splash damage, but I figure if you're going to have to use both of his skills throughout the course of the fight, you might as well use the one that's incrementally better in that situation. Alright, also doing cryo things. Part of me wonders if I should have innervated early just to get the debuff on them. I don't know how necessary that would have been either way. Now in this position, once they get below 29%, they go into murder mode, and I don't really want to deal with that. I don't want to risk that, one of them getting a lucky shot and just killing someone. So I end up actually swapping Rons out early to bring Kefka back in and reapply Trine. Staring longingly at that burst button. I understand why why bursts aren't allowed in the challenge, but it feels good to use them when you have them, I gotta say. It's kind of funny. I went from basically having exclusively, quote-unquote utility bursts, Kefka, Ramza, Y'shtola, Warrior of Light, and Kuja was the only damage-oriented burst I had, and then I again ended up pulling all three on the start dash banner, which I was really happy about, you gotta say, because that could have gone a couple of different ways, spending resources on characters I already had. But no, sometimes this game just comes down to luck. And here we go. Solid Barrel. Turn 60. Follow-up attack. Will you do it? Yes. Whew. So, there we go. One last run. I'm probably tired of seeing this fight. And I'm done posting videos of it. This will be my attempt at a TCC challenge. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.